All right. Hello out there in the tubes of the internet, and welcome to another fun-filled week in space. Space. I am your host with the most, Joan Emerson Bell, Blind Stallion Space Wizard, here to fill you in on everything that's going down in the celestial realms, giving you your weekly astrology forecast. So you know how to show up, and when it gets weird, you can always say, Jonah told me so. So welcome, come on in, sit back, relax. We're going to take us on a little journey through the stars and their relationships this week. I usually do this show on Mondays at whatever, 11 a.m. Mountain Time, which would make that whatever time it is for you. But this Monday is my birthday, and I've decided to take the day off because I rarely take a day off. And I don't know. So I'm coming at you on Sunday, a day early, getting you all prepped and amped for what's coming up next week. What's up, Flora? Happy birthday to you, and happy birthday to all my Sagittarian horse people out there. I love you all. And what's up, Sarah Janes? Yeah, big heads up. Me and Sarah Janes are doing a Sacred Waters retreat tour in Greece in September. And so, if y'all are interested in learning more about Greek mythology, star myths, sacred waters, I'll be doing some astrology, talking about the water signs and Jupiter's ingress into Cancer. All that is going to be happening in beautiful Greece in September. I have links in my bio, or you can check out Sarah Jane's, the mysteries.org to sign up. And Sarah put that in the chat. Thank you very much. And I'll put a link in the YouTube, whatever you do on YouTube, the show notes, if you are interested in that. Um, Oh yeah, and I'm definitely going to be celebrating, mostly celebrating by sleeping and hot springing and taking it really easy. So yeah, that's how I'm gonna take care of my birthday and take care of myself. And right now, I'm gonna take care of all y'all and let you know what's going down in space for the week. So yeah, we're gonna start off yesterday. Well, first off, last week was off the chain. There was a lot going on. I did a astrological review on my weekly astrology-themed radio show, which is called the Melee Report. You can find that on SoundCloud at Camp Wizard Camp. I'm going to throw a thing in the stories after this show so you can check it out and listen to the excellent playlist that I put together. And for all y'all on YouTube, I'll put a link in the show notes as well. So last week was pretty intense. We're kind of coming out of that and coming off of that. I think a lot of the astrology is still in effect for the early part of the week, including the Sun opposite Jupiter and Venus conjunct Pluto in Aquarius. And so we're just going to start off with that. That was exact yesterday, Saturday, December the 7th. We also had Mars stationing retrograde last week. But we're going to start off with Venus in Aquarius conjunct Pluto in Aquarius. This occurred yesterday, Saturday, December the 7th at 0 degrees and 23 minutes of the fixed air sign of Aquarius. So we had Pluto entering into Aquarius, where they're going to be posted up. That happened on November 15th, 19th, mid-November. Kind of a drop in the bucket because Pluto is going to be in Aquarius for the next 20 years. And already we are seeing some shifts and transformations around that. The first time that Pluto entered into Aquarius, which was back on January 20th of 2024, the very beginning of this year, if you can remember back that far, we had all this sort of like AI fever and a lot of talk about AI and AI coming online, and it was everywhere and all the rage. And now this time, Pluto entering into Aquarius for the long haul, and that happening, like I said, last month. And then over, early December, I believe it was the 4th or the 5th, we have this very interesting event in the news, this assassination of Brian Thompson, who is the CEO of United Health. which is a health insurance company, which had the largest deny claims or denial of people's healthcare claims of any insurance company in America. And we have this sort of interesting thing happening. One, the memes are just like off the chain, like great memes about what's going on. But we have this interesting thing of like people from kind of like across the political spectrum, kind of cheering this on and recognizing the sort of toxicity of healthcare and privatized health in America. And we have this interesting event, which is very Plutonian, like a cold-blooded assassination. Pluto dealing with the underworld, right? This is sort of underworld as in like, reaping and taking people into the death realms, and also underworld as in like political underworld, or sorry, like crime underworld or assassinations or, things that are not happening above board. And so we have this sort of assassination, which is an underworld event that is then, and very Plutonian, that is then bringing the collective together in a really interesting way, which is Aquarian. Aquarian deals with the collective, it deals with sort of the group, it deals with long-term goals, it deals with utopian visions. And we have this sort of Plutonian activation, which then is kind of bringing everybody together and being like, yeah, we should really re-examine privatized health in this country. And something that is also simultaneously happening is Blue Cross and I believe Anthem um, that day or around that time were proposing time limits on anesthesia for patients who are receiving surgery based on some arbitrary algorithm, like this surgery should only take this long, so we will only pay for 2 hours of anesthetic, general anesthesia for this patient. And then this corrupt CEO is assassinated, and all of a sudden they're like, well, we actually, that was a typo, we rethought that, and we'll just like take that off, right? But this is, I think one of the most major events that has us thinking about economic disparity and class difference in America since Occupy Wall Street, which was, the fallout from the economic implosion in 2008, which is when Pluto entered into Capricorn. So I think I might record something a little bit more in depth about the assassination on my Patreon on the Coffee with Jonah tier. But this is something that's sort of coming up around Pluto's ingress, around Mars station retrograde, and with Venus conjunct Pluto on Saturday, we have this interesting moment, right? Where Venus, which deals with our values, what we like, what we don't like, what we appreciate, what we find beautiful, conjunct Pluto, and we have this moment with this sort of assassination that brings all these people together, right? That makes us really rethink what our collective values are. And I think the sort of prevailing value in America is property over people, right? And profits over people. And with this event, I think a lot of people are like, wait a second, why are we doing this? Right? How did our values become so askew that we are putting profits before people on a regular basis? And that's just sort of like unspoken. It's common sense at this point. Like, oh yeah, like human life doesn't matter so much because CEOs and billionaires need to like be making their profits, and that's what's really important is like, my private property and my bottom line. And like, well, if like, you're not able to afford your anesthetic for the rest of the surgery, that's sort of your problem. And now everybody's like, wait a second, hold up, right? Why are we doing that? And why is that okay? And the other sort of piece of this that I think really brings in the Venusian component is that like this is the manhunt for the unnamed assassin is now becoming like this really beautiful piece of performance art. The bullet casings had delay, deny, and defend written on them, which are terms associated with how the insurance company sort of their strategy for denying people's claims, right? They delay the dealing with it, they deny the claim, and then they defend themselves in court. And like sick people are not able to take on an insurance company, and so they end up giving up the fight, and the insurance company is able to, kind of keep all these profits for themselves while people are suffering and, going into medical debt and dying without dignity, which is really messed up. And so, the assassin has this written on the bullets, which forces mainstream media to sort of talk about, okay, like what is going on here, right? Maybe this wasn't just senseless. And then yesterday, NYPD finds a backpack full of Monopoly money in Central Park. And it's like, okay, this dude has a point, right? This dude is talking about some shit right now, and is like leaving this trail of breadcrumbs that is like, yeah, this is about like insurance company and company monopolies, right? This is about the way that human life is treated, so that people can maintain a bottom line, right? And I think that this is very Venusian to have thought this out and left this very like elegant trail of breadcrumbs, which is talking about, the way that insurance companies function, the way that corporations function, the way that human life is sort of discarded so that the 1% can maintain their bottom line. And everybody has sort of like fallen into this because it's like, well, this is the system that we live in. I don't know, like we can't change it. And they're like, if you want to change it, vote. And then people try that, and it's like, well, that didn't really work. But like instantly, the CEO is assassinated and things start changing and people start asking questions. And I'm not saying that violence is the answer, but I am saying that like this is pretty interesting and this is a very kind of Plutonian moment. And Pluto spends a long time in a sign, and when they shift, things shift with it, right? Perspective shifts, right? The things that we're looking at shifts. And with Venus conjunct Pluto, sort of bringing it back to the present moment, right? With Venus conjunct Pluto, we are also getting a shift in values, right? What we find important, right? What we like, what we don't like, you know. And then on a uh right? So, being able to really notice like how our collective values might be shifting as Venus is passing over this Pluto point, as they are coming together at this first degree of Aquarius. And I think this is planting a seed that is going to unfold over time, right around Venus's synodic cycle with Pluto and Pluto's movement through Aquarius. And then at a personal level, right, this is not only like bringing transformation of values, right, but also shifts around like how we do relationship, what we like, what feels good, right? This can bring up transformation around pleasure, around what we are attracted to. This can also bring up feelings of obsession or jealousy or possessiveness, right? Because Pluto is a planet of control and it is a planet of power. And I think that one of the things that happens with Venus's conjunction with Pluto is we get kind of a transformation, not only with like what we like in relationship, and this is not just sexual relationship, this is also relationship with coworkers, relationships with friends, right? Whatever that relational container is, but there can be a shift there, and there can be a real question about power dynamics, right? And again, we're seeing this with this assassination, right? And we can also think about this in our internal lives, right? About how power functions in our relationship, and things may be shifting around this, right? And then this can also bring up feelings of jealousy or obsession or possessiveness, like I was talking about, right? And what happens with Pluto transits, especially with Pluto and Venus, I think about the abduction, right? Abduction of Persephone, being taken into the underworld, into this transformational experience where we go from being one thing, right? And Persephone was a naive maiden, right? Who was just sort of like out there picking flowers, and her mother Demeter was like, no, 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 like my baby, right? Kind of like the archetypal helicopter parent that is like nothing bad is going to happen to my child, and like I'm going to make sure that they stay in this like encased innocence forever, right? And then Pluto is like, oh hell no, that's not how things work, right? And abducts Persephone, and Demeter goes on her sort of dark night of the soul. And Persephone goes into the underworld where she is initiated into power and becomes the sort of queen of the underworld. And in some of the myths, she doesn't even have a name to begin with. She is just Demeter's daughter, right? Sort of like property, and then becomes transformed into Persephone, who is queen of the underworld and has access to power through the abduction, through the difficult experience, right? Through leaving the kind of field of naivete, right? And then entering into sort of the underworld and access to power. And we can think about this on a collective level, right? Where it's like this person gets assassinated, and all of a sudden people are like, wait a second, right? I like don't like privatized insurance either, right? And this affects me in like this way, right? And there's a sense of naivete that becomes shattered or disrupted, right? Which gives us access to our personal power. We can also think about this in our individual lives, right? And the places where we are obsessed, right? Or where we feel powerless or we like need to cling to power. And the ways that these feelings, although they are incredibly uncomfortable, can pull us through this process of transformation, right? And I think relationship, right? And we are human beings, we are relational creatures. I think that relationship is super important as a guidepost to how we transform and how we can transform. And, it is these sort of like activating feelings in the system around like love or obsession that can really point us in the ways of change and what is really important. Right. So we may find that what we are attracted to, the things, the people, and the situations that really call us to change and transform, right? And this can also lead to rumination, right? And an obsession, which can again point the way through the underworld to help us to access personal power and also to access that sort of authentic part of the self, which I think is what the underworld journey is about, right? Everything is stripped away except for what is vital, you know? And in the underworld, there is the lethe, right? The water of forgetting, which is I think part of the journey is immediately we're like, I don't like this. I want to forget, shut it off, turn it off, make it go away. And I think the Jupiter opposition to the sun might have also like brought some of this on, right? The desire to check out, the desire to forget, the desire to like not want to deal with the gnashing teeth of Cerberus, right? Or the exchange in the river Styx. But if we remember that we are on a journey, right, and to not look away and to not need to forget, there is great power that this gives us access to, right? And I think that this brings up, shadow material, which is always a great thing to be able to digest and process and integrate, because it shows us what's really important, right? Even though these like feelings of being powerless or unloved really suck, feelings of obsession really suck, right? These are difficult feelings that like no one wants to experience. But if we can sit with them and notice, okay, what is coming up, right? What is underneath this? What is this giving me access to, right? How is this transforming me? What is the personal power that this is maybe like allowing access to, right? I think can help to pull us through this underworld journey. And I think another story associated with this with love and the underworld, right? Because like love will make us do stupid stuff, right? Obsession will make us do really stupid stuff, and I think this is another component of this. And I think about Romeo and Juliet, or like any of these sort of stories where with like star-crossed obsessed lovers, right, where it pulls them towards their doom, right, or it pulls them into transformation. And one of these stories is the story of Orpheus and Eurydice, right? Where Eurydice is bitten by a snake and goes into the underworld and dies. And Orpheus, who is the greatest musician of all time, right, can enchant the birds and the trees, goes into the underworld and begs to have Eurydice's life restored. And he plays a song that makes Persephone weep, and they're like, okay, okay, that was too good, just like you can have her back. The only thing is like when you're leaving, don't turn around, right? She has to follow you out of the underworld, and don't turn around, right? If you turn around, she'll be lost forever. And he's like, no problem, I got this, right? So he's like, come on, let's go. And they're walking out of the underworld, and they cross the river Styx, and he hears all this like screaming and crying and her being like, no, right? And he's like, don't turn around, don't turn around, don't turn around. And then he hears her weeping, right? And he's like, don't turn around. And then he hears like all these horrible noises, and he hears her being like, I don't even love you, I fucking hate you, I wish you were never born. And he's like, oh, you don't mean that, right? Don't turn around. And then just as the sunlight, he sees the sunlight at the end of the cave, and he's stepping out, and he doesn't hear anything. He's like, Eurydice? Baby, where? Oh no, right? No. And she is pulled away from him, right? And this is like the look back is this like very charged moment, right? Where Orpheus loses her forever, right? This very charged moment. And, for like, I grew up watching Black Orpheus, right? It's like one of the first foreign films I ever saw, and it's like totally blown away, which is a great retelling in Rio de Janeiro in the 70s. Anyway, I was like, oh yeah, like just don't look back, right? Don't look back no matter what. But like the thing is, we can't avoid that, right? The story is the story, and we can redream it, but sometimes there are stories that it's like it is impossible not to look back, not to lose that thing, not to be transformed by that experience, right? Not to just coast by on a wing and a prayer, right? Not to just like rely on your charm and your ability to sort of enchant people with your gifts, right? Sometimes that doesn't fly, right? And we have to experience loss, right? And this is just part of life, right? We are in samsara, right? We are on the wheel, right? And we experience sickness, old age, and death, and that can be okay, right? And that can be okay, and we can deal with that, but we don't have to be attached to it, right? And we can experience things like losing love, but we don't need to be attached to it, and we can be transformed by that experience, right? Because if it always goes according to plan, right, if we always come out on top, then like what do we learn in that? Where's the transformation? Where's the growth, right? And no one wants to change when things are going great. You know what I'm saying? Like no one's like, yeah, fucking top of the world, everything's awesome. Like, I'm gonna stop smoking crack, right? No one's like, yeah, everything's amazing. I'm gonna start going to therapy and like really transform my life, right? It's only when things get difficult, it's only when we look back and we're like, oh shit, right? That thing that was really important is now gone. That's when I need to change. And this is the transformation that Venus and Pluto can bring to us, right? If we are open to roll with it and to listen to that sort of soft, quiet voice that emerges within when we are faced with these challenges. So, no, that's all wrong. Monday, December, sorry, give me 1 second. I got my dates all screwed up here. Oh no. No, 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 no. Yeah, please bear with me. We are going to Tuesday the 10th. That's right, because Monday is the 9th. And that's my birthday. Yay! Anyway, we're going to Tuesday the 10th. Um, and we have the Sun in Sagittarius trine Chiron in Aries. This is going down at Oh, thank you. Yeah, and what's up, Cosmic Cousins? I also just want to give a shout out to Jeff Hinshaw from Cosmic Cousins. I got an astrology reading with them the other day, and it was amazing, mind-blowing. They taught me a lot about, the asteroids, Black Moon Lilith, a bunch of stuff that I don't really work with, and it was so helpful to get another person's perspective on my chart because, like, I just do this all the time, and I'm like, oh yeah, I know, I know, I know, and to get fresh eyes and to get a different perspective, and their perspective was beautiful. So I really appreciate you and thank you. And if y'all need an astrology reading, I highly recommend Cosmic Cousins. Check them out. Their work is fantastic. Um, ooh, thank you. Okay, so moving on to Tuesday, December the 10th, we have the Sun in Sagittarius trine Chiron in Aries going down at 19 degrees and 10 arc minutes. I just want to point out that 19 degrees of Aries is this supercharged point because remember that total solar eclipse all the way back in April when Beyonce's Cowboy Carter album dropped? You remember back then when you were listening to that, right? Um, that is when we had the total solar eclipse in Aries, which happened at 19 degrees of Aries. and Chiron was conjunct that, and then Chiron moved forward and now is retrograde and coming back to that point. And so Chiron is sort of like reactivating that eclipse point. And when we have like major spatial events, right, like Pluto Saturn conjunction, like Mars Jupiter Saturn Jupiter conjunction, total eclipses, it sort of like digs into a specific point in the chart. And then as things pass over that, that gets reactivated. Like 0 degrees of Aquarius is the point that we have the great mutation when Jupiter and Saturn were conjunct on December 21st of 2020. And so that point becomes supercharged, and now we have Pluto crossing that. And so that may be bringing up themes that were seeded during the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction back in December of 2020. Oh, thank you, Lisa. Everything. Nice to see you, my friend. Um, and uh, so we have Aries at this we have Chiron, who is a archetype of the teacher and also the wounded healer, who is just posted up retrograde on this eclipse point. And so it, as Chiron becomes activated by transits of other planets, it may be bringing up themes that were kicked off during that eclipse, that Aries eclipse back, I think, April 4th or 5th. So just something to think about and something to consider. Now we have the sun in Sagittarius, which is a sign that is looking for big picture understanding and integration, right? Sagittarius is a centaur. Chiron is also a centaur. Coincidence? I think not, right? And so we have this all of the centaur energy in a harmonious relationship, right? And the centaurs are the relationship between the wild, instinctual animal self, the part that wants to like run and gun and play, right? That wants to just like go and do whatever they want and feel good, right? And always be partying, always be running, always be like rolling with your clique, right? And then the human part that's like, well, maybe I should like think about the long term, right? Maybe I should do something that is like, sustainable. Maybe I need a job, right? And so the Sagittarian archetype and the Centaur archetype is very much about finding ways to unify our instinctual animal selves and our intellectual, rational kind of left brain, right? We can think about this as the top down, right? Logical, intellectual, and the bottom up, somatic, instinctual, or we can think about this as the left brain kind of rational and the right brain symbolic, right? And finding ways to integrate these and direct them towards our goal, right? And so the sun in Sagittarius is very much looking for that big picture narrative that's really like tying everything together, right? Um, and Chiron is, associated with core wounding and the wound of abandonment, the wound of the Hydra poison, which is a poison that doesn't have an antidote, so it is a wound that never heals, right? And so um, we are trying to find a way to like integrate these things in this harmonious relationship. And one of the ways that I see this happening, right, is creating a story, Sagittarius, that can help reframe our experiences, right? These challenging experiences that we've gone through, and to think about how whatever our life events have been, right, good, bad, ugly, right, these are the things that have given us the tools and the resources. These are the things that have brought us to this point, right? And so it can be easy to be like, oh, this is all the bad shit that happened, right? And as human beings, we have this negativity bias, right? Our brains are like Velcro for bad experiences and Teflon for good experiences, right? And so we can have this sort of story that like all like, a very Eeyore story, right? Like, oh, all this bad stuff just keeps happening to me, right? And I think what we are getting out of this harmonious relationship between the sun in Sagittarius and Chiron in Aries is how do we shift that narrative, right? How do we reframe that story to like really recognize that all of these experiences have given us the tools and the resources that we need to be able to show up in the world. And this has really given us these gifts that allow us to not only be who we are now, but to show up in really big and amazing ways for ourselves and for other people, right? And to remember the ways that we have gotten through the challenges in our life, right? And this is the kind of medicine that we can share with other people. One of my favorite astrologers, Carolyn Casey, had like said a while ago that that she wants to change the word trauma to my beautiful, dangerous mission. Right. And I think that this is what this kind of relationship, the Chiron Sun relationship at this moment gives us the opportunity to do is to be like, oh, that was traumatic, but like it is also like my beautiful, dangerous mission that put me on this path, right? That allowed me to access these tools in order to heal and in order to function. And now I can share these with other people, right? In the way that I'm doing, or just in a relational sense and a way of being in space and being like, yo, like I went through something similar and this is what worked for me. Right. And we can think about the sun as our identity and sense of like self-expression, right? And trining this wound helps us to shift our narrative around our experiences and create a story that helps us to alchemize our challenges, right? And transform them into something that can be supportive for other people, as well as our future self, as well as our past self, right? And so, just something to consider as we are moving through the week, because we're experiencing, right, like this, Venus in the underworld and like this, like, obsession or like no one loves me or I'm not good enough, right? And it's like, hold up, right? How can we reframe that story to be something that is empowering, right? How can we take what feels poisonous and what can we do to transform that into something that is healing and helping, right? Because Chiron teaches us that the antidote always grows next to the poison, right? And that we are able to take these experiences, and as we move through them, they can transform us and transform others. I was gonna tell a little bit more of the Chiron myth, but let me see if I can get through the rest of this report, and if there's still time and I still feel like talking, we'll come back to it. Okay, just double check that this is correct. Yeah. Um, Okay, so Thursday, December the 12th, we are getting kind of the big transit of the week. And this is Venus in Aquarius opposing Mars, who is retrograde in Leo. This is going down at 5 degrees and 58 arc minutes of these fixed signs. So, first off, fixed signs are fixing stuff. They are holding on to it. They're like, we got a good thing going, never gonna quit, right? We're just doing this, like holding on to this, making sure this is staying right where it is, right? And so when we get kind of like challenging aspects between them, it's sort of like getting two stubborn people together, right? And an opposition is like people facing off, right? So this is like the most stubborn people in a debate, right? Which is like makes me roll my eyes. Um, and so one of the things that this brings up, right? Um, sorry, my notes are just like a scatter today. Okay, so this opposition brings up the relationship between Aquarius and Leo, right? Leo is ruled by the sun. It's like, this is me, this is who I am, this is what I'm doing, right? Especially Mars and Leo, this is what I'm doing. Look at me, I'm doing this. Isn't this great? Aquarius is the collective, the group, society as a whole, right? And so I think with Pluto entering into Aquarius, this axis is activated and it's going to be activated for a while, right? And the themes that come up are me versus we, right? And how do I show up in right relationship with the collective? And one of the ways that I was thinking about this. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day. Is just thinking about, the tapestry of life, right? Which is Aquarius, right? And then I am this individual thread that is being woven through, right? And so, how can I show up and be the best kind of day glow, glittery thread that I can be, right? While still like being interwoven into the collective tapestry in a way that doesn't like mess up the warp or the weave, right? A way that doesn't like disrupt the structure of everybody else. And I think this is that relationship, right? Another way that we can think about this, and this is coming from my friend Mickey Pellerano, who's a fantastic astrological magician and astrologer, but talking about Leo is like the artist studio where you're up in there, like you're doing your thing, you're like really expressing yourself, you're like, this is me, this is so meaningful, right? And then Aquarius is like the gallery where that like goes on a white wall and people stand around and they're like, huh, this is like, oh, this is really interesting, right? what do you think about their use of color here? Right? And like that relationship between like this is like I'm bearing my soul, this is so me, and people being like, oh, it's, I don't know if I get it, right? Could you make one that's more blue, maybe, right? And so that like can be a very tense relationship, right? And so with this Venus, which deals again with love and values, right? It is sort of more yin and drawing in opposition to Mars, right? Who is more active and in Leo, right? This is really activating that axis, right? This relationship between me and what I want and what is like good for the collective, or how do my actions and needs and wants and like my expression fit in with the gestalt of everybody else, right? And so with this opposition, which is two planets like looking at each other, right? It is a this and a that. There can be a lot of projection. You were doing this, right? I'm not that. You were that, right? And this can bring up power struggles, right? Venus draws things towards them. Mars goes out and gets what they want. When they are working really well together, this can the Venusian values or the aesthetic desires can really motivate Mars to go out and get the thing done, to like take care of business, to like go out and attain the object of desire, right? Mars goes out on the hunt and like gets Venus what they want, right? But in opposition, there's this push pull between our values and our will to act, right? And I think Mars being retrograde now, which is going to go on for a while, it might bring up feelings of impotence, right? Or feelings like we don't know what we want or unable to follow through or get what we want. And in turn, this can bring up feelings of frustration or anger, right? And then Venus coming off that conjunction with Pluto, there can be this transformation in values, right? Going through the underworld and being like, hold up, I'm not a naive maiden anymore. Like, I'm a fucking queen of the underworld, and I will smote you with a look, right? And we are doing things differently, right? However, right, that can bring up this shift in power dynamics in relationship with each other or relationship with ourselves. However, like Mars being retrograde might not have the ability to act on this, might not have the ability to make that shift, right? And the inability to take action to enact that change. And that can bring up a lot of frustration or feelings like maybe I don't have the power, maybe I'm not good enough, maybe I can't do this. And so I think that it's really important that we are able to like let these things brew and stir, right? And notice the shifts that want to emerge and that we want to be making without being like making sweeping judgments based on our energy levels. Because straight up, this is not the time for action, right? This is the time to be thinking about things. This is the time to be brewing in the darkness, right? We are coming into the darkest time of the year. The sun be setting at like 4 o'clock here, and by five, I'm like, I'm done, right? I'm going to sleep. I'm watching TV, right? I'm like watching Olivia Benson solve crimes, right? I'm not doing anything. And then like what immediately happens is I'm like, I'm a bad person. I'm unproductive, right? I'm gonna die. Or I'm like, I must be diseased, right? I just like spiral off into like these like horrific stories about my self-worth and like my like who I am as a human being and whether I'm going to be able to survive because I should be hibernating, right? But we don't have time for any of that these days, right? If you make it through one day without producing anything, like you're a bad person. And like that's not okay, right? So I'm bringing this up because there can be this desire to be like, oh, something's shifting and I need to act on that, but I can't, right? So I'm bad. And I really want to check those narratives and just like put that away for a minute. You can put that in the like, I will check on that later box, right? After the holidays, because I think that they're having like feeling low energy doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you, right? Feeling low energy is sort of like what's happening now. And it's okay to cultivate that and to sit with that and to allow these things to brew in the darkness so that when it's time for action, we can take it. Right. And one of the myths that is associated with the relationship of Venus and Mars is the myth of Adonis, which very much like the myth of Persephone, who plays a role in this myth, is connected with this time of year, right? And so in this myth, Venus sort of Venus out of or Aphrodite out of her jealousy like ruins a family, but takes their baby who has been orphaned because of the chaos that Aphrodite's jealousy has wrought on this family. But she has a change of heart and is like, "Oh, I'm really sorry, little baby. Like, I'm gonna give you to Persephone to raise in the underworld, and like, my bad, right? Sorry, I made your mom fall in love with your grandfather and then turn herself into a tree. But like, I'm gonna give you to this witch in the underworld to take care of you, and you're gonna be okay." And then as Adonis grows up, Aphrodite falls in love with him as he becomes the most beautiful youth in the land. Aphrodite falls in love with him, and there is a little bit of a tension between Aphrodite and Persephone. And Zeus is like, "Okay, this is how we're going to solve this. Adonis, you're with Persephone 3 months, and then you're with Aphrodite for 3 months, and then you get 3 months on your own where you can choose whatever you want to do." Right. And so everybody agrees. And then Aphrodite is like, "Don't you want to be with me like on your spare time? Because we have a lot of fun together." And Adonis is like, "Yeah, sure. Oh, yeah, that sounds great." And so Persephone gets jealous, Ares gets jealous, and Adonis is going out hunting one day, and Aphrodite's like, "Please, baby, don't go hunting. You don't need to hunt, right? That's dangerous. Why don't you just like lay around by the pool and look beautiful? Because you're really good at that, and there's no danger there." But he's like, "No, I want to try hunting." So he goes off hunting, and Ares, who is the consort of Aphrodite, right? They have a thing going on, and they have a secret love thing going on. And Ares is starting to get jealous because Aphrodite is spending all this time with this mortal youth, and Ares isn't getting any love, right? And so he sees Adonis hunting, transforms himself into a boar, and like takes that kid out, right? And Aphrodite hears him wailing, right, and runs over and holds him and is like, "Oh man, I told you not to go hunting." And transforms his blood into anemone flowers, which bloom really beautifully and go away. And then Adonis dies. Aphrodite is weeping, and Zeus is like, "Okay, we can have him stay in the underworld for half the year and then come up for half the year." Right. So the death and resurrection represent of Adonis represent the decay and revival of the plant year, right? And he was worshipped as a corn god or a grain god or the god of crops. Women would take lettuces representing him and put them on the rooftop to honor him in the summer, and the lettuce would wilt, right? And then they would take it out to sea, right? In these ancient festivals, right? And so Adonis becomes this, like Persephone, becomes this god of regeneration, right? This image of regeneration. And we can think about this in the opposition, right, of Venus and Mars. And we can think about this with Venus and Pluto, the parts of us that are in conflict, right? That have the sort of like beautiful beginning and then the climax and then the decline, right? Just like the life of anything, like the life of this report, like the life of a relationship, like the life of a life. Right, where there is this sort of wave, right, and the places of loss and lament, and also the place where it brings us closer to that authentic part of ourselves, that brings us closer to our Venusian values, that bring us closer to what we love and what we appreciate. And then how do we take that seed and honor that, right, and allow something new to regenerate from that refined seed that we are able to experience through this relationship, through this cycle of life, right, of this death and decay and rebirth, right? And we are always going through this, through each day, through each breath, right? Through each moment is that cycle of birth, sustaining, decaying, right? And then rebirth. And this is one of the things that astrology teaches us because we are working in cycles here, right? And these unique relationships are really bringing this up, the relationships of underworld gods and sky gods, right? The relationship between the lovers, the yin and the yang, right? And the places where jealousy arises. Another story that is associated with Venus and Aries or Mars, right, is Aphrodite, Venus, was promised to Hephaestus, who is the smith god who Hera had thrown out of Olympus, and it busted him up, so he always walked with a limp, right? And then through some trickery, he gets Hera to promise him Aphrodite as his wife. But Aphrodite has always been in love with Ares, even though they are never able to like really consummate. They're never able to get married, and it's always in secret, right? There's always this tension between Venus and Mars, right? But they come together in secret. And Hephaestus knew this, right? And was like, oh, I'm gonna show them. So he makes this very finely crafted net, right? That he finds them making love one day and throws it over them and is like, I'm gonna show them, right? And turns on the light, calls all the gods to laugh at them. Right. And the gods are like, well, that's actually kind of hot. And I'm sort of into that. But like Ares and Aphrodite are like, no, don't look at me. And like Ares goes off to his island to sulk, right? And so one of the things that happens in these relationships with Venus and Mars is that like tension, right, between desire and shame. Right. The sort of net that Hephaestus throws over them is the net of shame, this like invisible net that keeps us trapped, right? Where we're don't feel good about our expressions. And so something to think about in this tension is like the parts where it's bringing up shame or like I'm bad or I'm wrong, right? And there is a difference between guilt and shame. Guilt is like I have done something wrong, right? Which is a very pro-social feeling to have because this is how it helps us to stay in community, which is a Aquarius thing, right? Oh, I've done something wrong. I feel bad about that. I'm going to shift my behavior so that I am able to better fit within the tapestry of the community. Versus shame, which is a story that I am bad. There is something fundamentally wrong with me and how I show up in the world. And I think that this is something that we can get with that Mars retrograde in Leo, which is very much about the individual, right? Oh, going backwards, like did something wrong. Oh no, I'm awful. Everybody hates me, you know which is that actually doesn't help us out, right? It does not help us out to think that we are bad. And so, one of the things that we can think about in this relationship is when those feelings arise, which they might in this relationship. Oh, like I feel bad about what I'm attracted to, or I feel bad about what I desire, or I feel bad about the actions that I want to take to be able to express myself and express what I love or express my values, right? And then feeling like very frozen or trapped or caught because like that's not okay or that's not safe or like I won't fit in, right? And how do we sit with that? And how do we like what recognize and honor those authentic parts of ourselves that are driven by our Venusian values and our genuine desire, right? Without feeling shame, without feeling like we're bad or wrong, right? Because, and anytime we get this opposition, we have this tension of the opposites. And I will continue to reiterate this because I think this is really on brand for this year is being able to sit with this tension of the opposites. This is what I like, but this is what I do, right? This is what I want, but this is what I have to engage in, right? How do we sit with this tension of the opposites until a secret third thing emerges? Until we have the what Jung called the transcendent function, which is this like new idea that kind of bridges the gap that allows us to hold both of these. And how do we honor that like small, quiet voice within that really knows what we're supposed to be doing? Right? Instead of being like, oh, I can't be who I want to be because I'm in this room or this collective or this group, or, when I take action that feels authentic, I feel bad about myself. And like, this is an opportunity to begin to notice that dynamic and to shift those things. Let's see if there's anything else. I think I'll leave it mostly there. On Friday the 13th, spooky old Friday the 13th, we have Venus in Aquarius, sextile Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius. And so this is a good time for talking with friends, for being social. Mercury is communicative. Venus loves to party, right? So conversation, discussing light subjects, social gatherings, right? Holiday parties, great time for a holiday party. Mercury in Sagittarius wants to tell stories and talk about the big picture, right? Venus in the air sign of Aquarius loves to communicate about their ideas and how things should be and what they like and what they don't like. and to think about like what is the company that you keep, right? Because coming off of this, Venus conjunct Pluto, Venus opposing Mars, thinking about like how do we process that and like who are the people around us that support us, right? Who are the people that we can communicate with that are able to like help support our values and the things that we love and the ways that we feel good, right? And in a lot of ways, we are the company that we keep, right? And if you're around people that you can't express your truth with, like, then that's really hard because you got to like keep that inside. And if you were with people who like help you to honor your truth, then that, is a lot easier to sort of function in the world. Right. And so something to think about is how much energy we have for being around others, right? And how much energy we want to dedicate to ourselves, right? And this is also a great time for making art, writing poetry, good time for intellectual and aesthetic stimulation, great time to go see art or music, right? And this might be an excellent time, let me just tell you again, Friday the 13th, to take yourself on a self date, right? Show yourself something beautiful. Go take in some culture, right? Process something amazing and aesthetically pleasing, right? Which brings us to Saturday, December the 15th, which is the Gemini full moon. This is occurring at 23 degrees, 53 arc minutes of loquacious Gemini. And this is going to be happening at 1:01 a.m. Pacific time, making that 4:01 a.m. Eastern time. And Mercury is going to be stationing direct that day at 6 degrees and 24 minutes. We'll probably talk about that next week. But one of the things to think about, like, the aspects that I've been discussing today are all pretty much in effect during that full moon. And just one of the things to think about is a full moon is a kind of culmination, right? So things are like really bubbling to the surface, and a lot of the tension between Jupiter and Mercury, between the splitting of ideas, the multiplicity of ideas, all the information, the being like, I don't know what to believe, this is all kind of like coming to a culmination and just being able to sit and observe and notice, okay, what can I do without? What can I let go of? Right? What are the ways that I can really support the story that I want to tell? Right? Not in a kind of isolationist way, not I'm not listening to anybody else's opinion, right? But how can I really rewrite the narrative, right? What is the information that I'm gathering that helps me to shift the story into something that feels empowering, that feels helpful, that feels, that it provides a way forward and gives me a target to shoot my arrow instead of a story that is just like chaotic and regressive. And so, yeah, I think that's all the astro weather that is fit to print for this week, my friends. Thank you so much for tuning in and bearing with me as I switch things up so that I could go have a nice, relaxing birthday where I can turn off my phone and not think about anything. That's the story that I want to tell. All right. The space in between the spaces. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. And yeah, I appreciate all y'all being out there and for tuning in. Do I have any announcements? Yeah, I got a radio show this week. I have a radio show called The Melee Report. It comes out on SoundCloud. You can find it at Camp Wizard Camp on SoundCloud. I will put a link in the show notes on the YouTube. I will put a link in the stories that I will post right after I'm done with this talk on the Instagram. And every week about I put out a radio show dealing with the astrology of the week. I play music based on the transits of the week. Oh, thank you so much, Lynn. And this week it's a recap of everything that was going down because it was a big week in space. I think the playlist is fantastic. Excuse me. I'm very pleased with the playlist. I urge you to listen to it, share it with your friends, share it with your relatives, share it with your relatives' friends. What else? I'm going to be doing a deep dive into 2025 year ahead review. I guess it's not a review. I guess that would be a preview with Sam Reynolds, Lindsay Turner, and Michael Bartlett. That's going to be a Zoom event on January the 4th. You can get tickets for that at badpastor.me. Oh, thank you, Sarah Janes. All these people are wishing me birthday wishes. I feel so loved. Thank you. If you are interested in what's going down in astrology in 2025, check it out. You can get tickets at badpastor.me. I think it's like 25 bucks, and we will be going over all the major transits of 2025 and giving you some perspective on the year ahead, which is going to be off the chain already. I can tell you that. And so look out for that. Again, I'll be putting there's a link in my bio on Instagram. I'll put a link in the show notes on this. Yeah, in September, me and Sarah Janes are going to be doing a excellent dreaming and mythology retreat in Greece. That is going to be a fantastic adventure. I welcome you all to come and check that out, and I'll be putting links to that and things as well. And other than that, I'm available for tarot and astrology readings. If y'all want to get up in it, into the nitty gritty, see where this Mars retrograde is going on in your chart, see where Pluto's ingress is affecting you in your life, in your chart, anything else that you are curious about, hit me up. My website is campwizardcamp.com. You can also DM me on the Instagram at Blindstein Space Wizard. I don't know. I'm out there. You can find me. I'm not hard to find, but I love doing astrology readings. I love doing tarot readings. I love doing client work. So if you find yourself needing some help during these trying and turbulent times, yeah, just hit me up and we can work something out. And other than that, I'm sick of talking. I'm gonna go take a nap. I wish you all a great rest of the day and an excellent week in space. And I'll see y'all next time. Same wizard time, same wizard channel. And until then, good people, may the force be with you. Bye now.